What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Chris's Snacking Game. I'm your host Chris, and today we are back in my kitchen. We are talking about meat, the three most common meats in our kitchens besides fish. We're gonna save that for the next video. And today we have pork, beef, and chicken. First up, we have beef. The white lines going through the meat and the red color are a clear indicator. When it comes to the cooking temperature, you have a couple different options. For rare, we have between 120 and 125. Medium rare would be 130 and 135. Medium 140 to 145. Medium well 150 255, and everything above 160 would be well done. Next up we have pork. As you can see, there are not as many white lines going on as in beef, and the color is slightly different, goes a little bit into the pink, and when it comes to the cooking temperatures, never go below 150. Beef can be eaten in different varieties regarding heat temperature. However, pork cannot. So keep that in mind. Never go below 150. And the last meat on our list for today is chicken. As you can see, the color is really light compared to the other two meats, and depending in what kind of food the chicken are getting, the meat can also be quite yellow when the chicken are fed with corn. When it comes to the cooking temperatures, please here note, never undercook chicken. That can cause severe health issues, from food poisoning to salmonella poisoning. You don't want that, so never go below 165. And I know there are so many rumors about pork or chicken, that pork is really unhealthy and really dirty animal, and so on. Same with chicken, but it's all about the preparation, how you prepare the meat, how you handle the meat. All three meats, as you can see in the video, need intense care when preparing it. So always wear your gloves, always wash your hands, and be sure to wash the meat as well. And the first meat we're gonna cook a super delicious meal with is pork. Today I will be sharing with you my favorite recipe for pork tenderloin, also called pork fillet or gentleman's cut. But before we getting started in the kitchen, before we even touch anything, we're gonna wash our hands, we're gonna grab a sanitizer, also we're gonna grab a pair of gloves to touch the meat afterwards. And as I already said, handling meat is very important. Also, your how you care about your body is as well important. As you can see on the screen, I'm demonstrating that meat, when fingernails didn't cut properly, meat can get stuck underneath, and sometimes there are just little tiny particles underneath your fingernails. That's why I'm usually always wearing gloves to avoid that kind of things. Also, when you are battering a lot of meat, or when you, for example, batter a fish, you use a lot of breading or batter, I would recommend you to also wear gloves. The batter or the breadcrumbs can stuck to the hair on your fingers, on your hands, which can get annoying and which can get hairs into food as well. Next thing we need to get sure is to have all the tools and all the ingredients ready before we even get start cooking. And here you can see I've already got a pretty good knife handy. I would use that kind of knife to fillet fish or to cut meats. Here you can see I had some starting problems when sharpening my knife. That's why the edge looks so messy. Also, we need to get sure we have all the ingredients ready. The first ingredients we need for the dumplings are bread cubes. And here I just grabbed some bread buns I picked up from a Polish shop, which is similar to Austrian bread buns. Also for the dumplings we need 1.5 teaspoons of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, and also half a cup of milk. We're gonna add some warm water later on, but this is only when we need to thicken up the consistency of the dumpling dough. Also, we need at least 1 cup of breadcrumbs. So let's get to the ingredients for the pork. The first thing we need is half a tablespoon or half a teaspoon of pepper, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and here we have a mixture of sweetened dried paprika, we have ginger, ground ginger, we have chili powder, and the black corns in there, they are nigel something. I'm gonna put the ingredient list in the description so you guys can see it, but the nigel seeds, they are similar to cardamom seeds. They are from the same family. They give you a little bit more woody taste. I love using them especially for roasts. Also we have the anise seed, star something, also put it in the description. And as for all my dishes, I'm here also using the chili paste. What do you do before you cut meat? Well, I'm gonna tell you what I do before I cut meat. Before I cut meat with a knife, I will sharpen the knife, no matter what. And if I'm cooking everyday meat, I would sharpen the knife every day. Just before every use, I give it a good scratch on the stone, just to be sure I have a super sharp knife, because there is nothing worse than having a non-sharp knife and having to clean out a piece of meat. When sharpening the knife, it is really important to hold the knife in a certain angle and to pull it towards you, and you straighten it from the starting point of the edge to the pointy side of the edge. As you can see in the video, I'm demonstrating it right now. I'd say if you do it between 5 and 10 times on each side, if you regularly do it, that's completely sufficient. If you're not doing it as often, you might have to do a few additional swipes. But as I said, I would highly recommend you, before every use of a knife, just sharpen it. Trust me. As I already said, there's nothing worse than working with a non-sharp knife. So once you have all your ingredients together, you have all your tools, you sharpened your knife, you washed your hands, you sanitized your hands, you got your gloves ready to go, you can get the bowl with the meat. And here I will recommend you to grab a bowl when getting the meat. Drop the meat into the bowl and leave it there for a couple minutes. The meat will lose water, and after a while, as you can see, there is a little bit buildup on the bottom of the bowl. And here I recommend you to wipe it off. Just grab a paper towel and wipe the fluid, the liquid off the meat, as you can see in a second. And here, as you can see, I'm wearing the glove on my left hand because I'm cutting with my right hand. And don't put on the glove with the hand you're cutting with, because that's not the hand you will touch the meat with. Happened to me before, so don't laugh, just a little tip. And here again, when you're cutting meat, put it on a cutting board, and when the meat is as wet as this one, just wipe it down a little bit, and you're pretty much good to go to clean the meat. And here, pork and beef have something called silver skin. Silver skin is not like the white parts on the meat. It's almost looks like a little layer of silver skin on top of the meat. You could probably cook it with it, but it's gonna get really tough. So before I cook every meat, I remove most the silver skin as good as possible. And because I'm not gonna slicing the meat up afterwards after it's cooked, I will kind of shred it, and I don't really want any white parts, any fatty parts. I will always remove, regardless which meat. Of course, when I have a nice piece of steak, I will leave a few of the white spots in it. Just simply, it gives a flavor as well. But when I'm cooking a roast and I'm adding anyways flavor to the meat, I can't say it often enough. I do not want the white fat on my meat. Some people like it, so please, if you want it, leave it on. But as you can see, I try to remove every single one. And the way you cut meat is you grab the pointy edge of the knife and you kind of slice underneath. As you can see in the video right now, I'm trying to get as low as possible under the white parts, and then just pretty much just slicing it off. In a second, we're gonna go to the silver skin, removing that as well. But as for now, so far, we are looking good with that piece of meat. And here you can see I'm already getting it in shape to put it afterwards in the oven. Only a few white spots left. But other than that, that one is actually not too bad. I'm always trying to pick up my meat from the butcher just to be on the safe side. Supermarkets, you never can say for sure where it's coming from. So, and here you can see that's the silver skin I was just talking about. And here I'm trying to get as close to the skin as possible. And here, that was just a perfect cut I made. There's almost no meat on the silver skin. And you hold the knife in an angle and you just pretty much slice through it. But the angle, the edge of the knife touches the silver skin. So the angle is upwards, so you don't remove too much of the good meat. Here you can see in the middle there's a little spot, but other than that, I did pretty good. And here again, we're gonna go really thin underneath the skin and try to remove as little of the meat as possible. Here again, I did just perfect with that cut. We're gonna lift up the skin a little bit, grab the knife underneath, and here you can see I'm holding it with an angle upwards with the edge and just sliding it through. And here I can see right now there was a little bit too much cut down. But when you start out, when you do it the first couple times, things like this happen. I did it hundreds of times before and it still happened to me. So don't be too concerned about that. You're doing a good job when you're able to remove as much as I'm doing in the video right now. And here you can see also an example why it is really important to have a super sharp knife. With a knife which we didn't sharpen at the beginning, it wouldn't be possible to cut the meat as good as we do right now. So, and here you can see we grab our 2 pieces of meat, and now we're gonna put the season on it. Here, the 2 little pieces, those are my 2 test pieces. I've always tried to cut off 2 little pieces. We're gonna go back to the little pieces in a bit. First up, we're gonna put on the seasoning or a dry rub. I think you also called it a dry rub. So we're gonna put that on top, and also we're gonna add the salt and the pepper. And here we need to rub it really good in it. So we're gonna grab the glove again and we're gonna try to rub the spices as good into the meat as we can. And here there is no special trick, there is no special magic behind it. You just grab your hands, you grab it with the gloves, and you rub around the meat to ensure that all the spices are covered all around the meat. And when it comes to pork, I love to mix any kinds of fruits in with the pork. This time I was able to pick up some figs from my local vegetable store, and I was just so happy to grab the pork right away from the butcher to show you guys my recipe with the figs. I usually also add apples or pears. The flavors of the apple, the sweetness of the pears, in combination with the pork, is just amazing. I wouldn't put any citrus fruits other than maybe a passion fruit, but I never tried it. I might gonna try that later on. But in this video, as already said, I'm using figs as a sweetener for the meat. Also, when it comes to barbecue, you use usually lots of sugar, but I'm not gonna put any sugar in this recipe because the figs are quite sweet. Once we are finished covering all the meat with the seasoning, we can move on to the dumplings. And here note, this is the original recipe. I didn't got it from any cookbook or so. That's still from my grandma and my mom. So I'm just using their recipe. And here I've already made a little mess, dripped the salt, but doesn't matter. Should still be enough salt in the mixture. We're gonna dump the salt and the pepper in it, and the first step, we add the milk. And here we're gonna let it sit now for approximately 10 till 15 minutes till the bread or the bread buns soaked up all the milk. After the bread soaked up all the milk, we will add a little bit of warm water, as I said at the beginning. Other than that, we're gonna let it rest for now. Now we're gonna change location. We're gonna go to my stove and we're gonna get the meat ready. In order to get the most out of the meat, I usually seal the pores before putting it in the oven. What does that mean? You fry the meat on each side to close the pores where the fluid, the liquid, the juice from the meat will come out. Here you can see I'm holding it down to close it on every side. Afterwards, in the oven, when I put it in my oven dish and I put it in the oven, and for example I would just put the rare piece of meat in there, it would just be super mess. There would be so much liquid in it. There would be I think a thick foam on top of the liquid. It's just not good. So when you make things like this, always seal the pores on the meat. It's really important, and it makes a big difference on the juiciness of the meat. So really important, that step. As you can see, I'm not gonna leave it on for too long. I don't wanna get the rub, the dry rub, the seasoning on it to burn. Of course, heat is playing a big role here as well. Don't crank up the heat all the way. Just leave it halfway or maybe 3/4. It's plenty enough. So don't go too crazy. You don't want to have burnt seasoning anywhere. It's just not good. It gives you a bitter aftertaste. You don't want it. So keep that in mind and be really careful when doing that step. When at this step, when you got burnt parts and the burnt parts are having an overwhelming taste, you will taste it afterwards in the dish as well. And here I know some cooks would just saute the meat and put some liquid in it. to clean out the residue in the pan, but I usually don't do that because we are having so much flavor going on afterwards. I usually don't do that for this step. Don't get me wrong, if I have a steak and, for example, I make a pepper sauce with that steak, I would definitely use the residue in the pan, but for this step, for this dish, I don't use it. So, as I already said, for this step, we don't look for any core temperature or any heat we need to achieve. We simply want to close all the pores so the juice of the meat stays inside. Once that completed, we can transfer the meat to our baking bowl or baking dish in order to get the next step started. So once we have sealed the pores of our meat, we can get going with the next step. Here you can see I'm about to chop chopping onions. Here again, I don't have the prettiest knives, but my knives are still working. They are still sharp because I'm sharpening them every time before I'm using it. So there are a couple of ways to chop onions depending on the dishes. For my dish, I want to cut like half slices because I'm gonna put it underneath the meat and let them cook with it. As you can see, I don't know what's it called, but there are certain words describing the different cutting methods. As I said, I don't know them. That's the way I cut it for I cut the onion for the dish this time. I just want the little slices. I don't want to chop it too finely. The vegetable will be in the oven for quite a long time. If you chop it in little tiny pieces afterwards, you won't have anything left because it's completely dissolved in the juices of the meat. So the way I'm doing it, I grab one of my baking dishes. I'm gonna put the onions on top, and here please note my girlfriend isn't a big fan of onions. That's why I'm not using so many. Feel free to use more, feel free to use a whole onion. And here you can see we're gonna top up the onions with the meat, gonna put it on top of it, and here you can see the next thing I'm grabbing are the figs. The figs is gonna be a bit messy because I had them frozen. I'm not gonna I don't have the opportunity to get them every time I want them, so whenever I see in my local store they are available, I grab a couple just to freeze them. Just whenever I feel like having my pork dish again, I can just grab them out of the freezer. Before I used the cleaning method, I was just chopping them, cutting them in half and putting them into the baking dish. But because afterwards it was quite messy to clean them, I started peeling them before I put them in. Here you can see it is still quite messy, but if you do it that way, if you clean the figs first, if you peel them first, all you have is the fruit meat afterwards, and it's pretty much completely dissolved in the juices of the meat, and everything is just incorporated with each other, and it's just amazing taste. So that's just a little tip. When you use figs or when you use even apples, peel the apples before. When you make a sauce out of the juice and you have the apple skin, the seeds, the stems, all the shit swimming around in your sauce, you don't want that. You need to sieve it out, and just unnecessary work. Clean it before, put it in the dish. And here I'm gonna add a little tiny bit of water just to get everything started, to get the juices, everything out. And also I use usually vegetable chicken or beef stock. Because I didn't have anything handy, I'm using those cubes. Yeah, I know the cubes are not the best solution, but it's not the worst either. If you look on the ingredient lists of those vegetable stock cubes, it's not bad. It's really not bad. And if you don't have any stocks cooked up already or frozen into ice cubes in your freezer, that's the best alternative you can go with. Once we have everything in our baking dish, the meat is ready to go in the oven. Usually I start out with 180, go up to 210 depending on the meat. For the pork, because we're gonna shred it, we don't want a crust on top of it, so we don't need to really remove the lid. Next up, we're gonna finish up the side dish, our bread dumplings. Here you can see the milk water mixture did an amazing job. We got the consistency we want, and it's time to add the other ingredient. As for the breadcrumbs, we have them already, and also we need 3 medium eggs. Cracking the eggs is as easy as it can get. Just be sure not to have any eggshell in the mixture. Once we have cracked 3 medium eggs into the mixture, we can mix it around, and here you can just grab a spoon, but the best way is to just use your hands. So dig in it and squish around it until the bread and the eggs incorporated perfectly with each other. After a few seconds, you can start adding the breadcrumbs. Here you can see you can just dump the whole bunch on top of it. You most likely need to add a little bit more liquid afterwards, but all in all, that's already looking pretty good. We're gonna put in the rest of the breadcrumbs, and then we almost done to get the dumplings going. And as you can see in the video, it always depends on the product you are working with. I usually stick to the measurements when I have a dish I've already made a video about, or I've already written down some ingredients to it. And when I say it always depends on the ingredients you are using, I mean there are not just one brand of breadcrumbs, there are 100 brands of breadcrumbs, and each will act differently. Here you can see I've stuck to the exact measurements I wrote down, but it's still a bit wet, so I'm most likely gonna need to add more breadcrumbs. Let me just grab them little quick, and here you can see I've added half a cup more of the breadcrumbs, and that's the consistency we are looking to get out of it. You need to get it nicely formed, but also there need to be some air pockets in it. The air pockets are provided with the chopped up bread we had in the bowl at the beginning. And when you roll the dumplings, don't squish them together too much, because afterwards you got cement blocks, and that's not what you want. So only put them a little bit together and not squish them together, and let them roll. Don't put any pressure on your hands. Just let them roll in between your hand balls. So, and while you guys finish up the rest of your dumplings, I'm gonna put mine already in a pot. I'm gonna cook them, and here bring a pot of water to boil, then crank down the heat to at least half and just let it simmer, and then put the dumplings in. The moment the dumplings will swim on top of the surface of the water, they should be finished. Leave them in for a couple additional minutes just to be on the safe side. So, and here we're gonna grab the cutting board, and remember the little pieces of meat I told you are my test pieces. And here you can see why. I can just grab them and see what they look like, and man, I can tell you guys, that is some delicious meat. I'm gonna put the original audio in here, just you guys can hear me say what I said when I tried the test pieces. It was just amazing, juicy, and the flavors from the figs, the sweetness, it's just incorporated perfectly with everything I put in there. Now all we need to do is wait for our dumplings. Once the dumplings are finished, I'm gonna shred pretty much the meat. We're gonna put everything back in the oven dish to get all the juices with the meat together. And here you can see, I mean, it is just a gorgeous pieces of meat. And as I said, the figs, the onions, they pretty much incorporated with the juices of the meat, and it's just amazing to smell, to look, to taste. I can just, guys, recommend you to recook that dish. You will absolutely love it. If you cook it for event, for having family over, I guarantee you, everyone trying that will absolutely love it. And here, shredding the meat. There is there are some tools online available. I'm gonna put the link in the description just to show you. It's called the bear claws. I would love to have them. It's just pretty much resemble the claws of a proper bear, and it makes it easier to shred meat like this. In my case, I don't have the fancy bear claws. I'm just using 2 forks, as you can see, to rip it apart and to afterwards mix it back in with the juices. And when you look closely at the meat, while I'm pushing it down to pretty much shred it apart, the juices coming out of the meat, that's something you want to see when you cook that dish. It's just an amazing sight of pile of meat and juices. Everyone into barbecue will absolutely love this dish. And here you can see that's the rest, and we're gonna take the star thingies out. The rest can stay inside. Well, maybe not the rest. We're gonna take out the little black, probably onion got stuck to the edge of the bowl. And here you can see me putting back the meat into the juices and mix everything together. We're gonna put the dumplings in here as well, just to have to steam them a little bit further in the oven. And remember the Russian fancy chili paste I mentioned in pretty much all my food videos. We're gonna take 1.5 spoons or maybe 1 spoon. It packs a punch, so be careful when adding that to your food the first time. I've added only 1 teaspoon. We're gonna mix everything together now to just get everything, all the flavors together. And the chili paste, as I already said, it packs a punch, so be careful. You don't want to have that dish overwhelmingly spicy. It would just take away the joy of the amazing flavors we just created. And just to top it off, maybe quarter, maybe a little bit less cup of water. It doesn't screw up the flavors or anything. It just gives us an additional space to work with the dumplings. Obviously, the bread dumplings, they are quite dry. Even if they are cooked perfectly, they will be a little bit dry, and you definitely want to have some juices out of the meat for the dumplings as well. Maybe even make your own gravy out of it. And here you can see the dumplings are perfectly. The moment you can grab a dumpling and rip it apart like this, and there is no squishy part, there is no doughy part, there you can see they are cooked just perfectly. So we got the dumplings, we got the meat, we got everything ready. It's time to plate up and to see what the finished product would look like on a plate. So before we going to the dinner table, we're gonna get ready to eat that. We're gonna put the dumplings into the big baking dish and mix it a little bit together with the juices, so the dumplings won't be super dry. So here you can see in a second I'm gonna grab the baking dish again. We're gonna put in the dumplings, And here you can see I've already put it back in the oven for an additional 10 minutes just to have the juices also in the dumplings. And here you can see when you turn around the dumplings, you can see they already covered the bottom part with the juice of the meat, which is a positive sign. That's something we want to see. And here we have the finished product. Yeah, it doesn't look as pretty as you would maybe see it in a restaurant, but we are cooking at home. I'm in my private kitchen, so there is no pressure in having a super fancy, super nice looking dish. Sure, that I always eat with as well, but in this case, that's the best result. We have perfect dumplings, we have the pork, we are all good to go. Thanks everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, and share, and see you next time.